welcome to the Ultimate Creepcast episode tier list. In this video, I'm going to be going through every single episode of the entire Creepcast series up to the point of recording, at least, and, summarize them, give my thoughts about them, and put them in a tier list. Before we get into it, though, real quick, as a disclaimer, these are horror stories, some of them at least, so they do get into some mature themes. I'm not really going to talk about that here in this video, but just a warning, in case you do check out some of these, be prepared. Most of them are pretty cheesy, but I just got to put that out there. With that being said, let's start with the very first episode, Stairs in the Woods, version 1. Being the first episode, there is still some rough edges. They don't actually read the story, they just kind of talk about it as if you already know what, as if you read it for yourself, so it doesn't really work with the format that we have now. But the story is fun, even in the way they describe it. It's about weird supernatural things happening in a national park. But once again, the flow and format hasn't been established yet, so the story really suffers there. For first story, it seems pretty fitting to put it right in the C tier. So, there we go. Moving on to the second story, we have the classic Jeff the Killer. This is basically the first, if not the very first. It is definitely the most famous creepypasta. That being said, it is an awful story. It is about a 13-year-old who defends himself from bullies and then gets a taste for violence and then gets his face burned in a fight and then just kills his whole family for no apparent reason other than he's crazy. But it is an internet classic, so I can't put it in F tier. Plus, it's a bunch of fun to watch, so I'll put it in C. Next up, we have the Russian Sleep Experiment. Once again, back-to-back, just legendary. Even if you've never heard of creepypastas, like me, before I started watching this, you've heard of this one. For me personally, I remember watching a YouTube video, Mr. Nightmare or something, probably, about this when I was in 5th grade, and I completely thought it was real for years. The story is about a Soviet secret experiment where they tested a gas that keeps people infinitely awake, like meth, basically. And then because of that, the experimentees go insane and basically get possessed by a sleep deprivation demon. It's a pretty cool premise, and I really like the kind of alternate reality, almost realistic spin on it. It makes it really interesting. Towards the end, it gets a little fantastical, and I really wish it would have just stuck more to reality and kind of really tried to sell you on the idea that this was a real historical thing. All in all, once again, pretty good. C tier. It might seem like I'm, being pretty middle of the road here, just putting everything in C tier, but trust me, there's a lot of episodes, and we need to leave room for the other ones. Plus, C is average, Don't get offended by C tier, that means it's okay, it's good, it's normal. Okay, for number 4, we have Borrasca, which is, if you're familiar with this podcast at all, is a legendary name. Arguably the best episode in the show's history, in episode 4, so we're starting off strong. Prefacing this with a little trigger warning, not spoiling anything, but just be warned. If you haven't seen this episode or listened to the story, please do. There's a twist at the end, which is just, it hits you like an 80,000-pound semi-truck, right in the face. It's crazy. It's super well written. The characters are really easy to get invested into with, just a little bit of dialogue. It's not like they're over-explaining things or it takes forever. It is a long story, but it's not drawn out. The characters, you really get emotionally attached to them. You get invested in the story with the mystery of everything and the town. And like I said, at the end, it just a generational plot twist. It's insane. I love it. Easy S tier. There we go, right into S tier. Next up is our first stinker, I would say. It's not horrible. But it's My Dead Girlfriend is Messaging Me on Facebook. Story is what the title says it is. There's not that much of a story going on. It's kind of boring, honestly. maybe because I've watched this podcast too much or whatever, I feel like I've seen the whole idea of like, you know, dead person haunting me through messages. I don't know. It's kind of a bland idea. D tier. Now that I've started to hate on the stories a little bit, let me just say, you know, I am just a critic. Critics mean nothing, right? I'm just giving you an opinion. These authors put time and effort into their stories, you know, no disrespect. I'd rather you have put this out there, for the most part, than not have put anything out at all. You know, I'm just giving my opinion here. This is not like a slight to any of the authors. You know, we're getting a bunch of free stories. Just be grateful. With that being said, our next one is another heavy hitter, Penpal. This story just rocks. That's the best way to explain it. It's about a little kid, like elementary school age, I think like first grade even, like super young, who, for a class experiment, puts like a photo, like an all about me kind of thing, a letter basically about himself with the school's address as like a community thing, and they send it off in balloons up in the sky. And the game is, if someone receives it in a nearby town, they'll message, you know, the person, and then they can pen pal back and forth with that, you know, whoever finds it. Thing is, this kid got really unlucky, and his letter just so happened to fall in the hands of like a crazy, just obsessive, like homeless person, basically. From that point on, this guy just will not leave this kid alone. Like, he is completely obsessed. The guy takes photos of him constantly and like will mail him the photos as like a stalker thing. And the way the story, sorry, I'm just reading off there. The way the story can pull you into the life of a young boy, just enjoying his summer, playing with friends, you know, super picturesque and romantic, like good nostalgia. And all of a sudden it just slaps you in the face with just the horror of just having this innocent little kid just being stalked by this evil force in the background. And throughout his whole life, you know, through middle school, through middle school and high school, this one stalker just will not leave him alone. He's so close to having just this picturesque, perfect life, but there is this evil stalker always lurking in the background, so things can just never be right in his life. It's like a curse. I do kind of wish the ending was a little different. I don't know what he could have done, honestly. Like, I don't have any constructive criticism. It's just, I don't know. It didn't hit as hard as I hoped it would. That being said, story's still amazing. Ending doesn't affect it too much. Another S tier. Alright, next up is, once again, another classic. You know, this tier list is kind of front-loaded because for this podcast, the hosts are obviously going to review the stories that are like the most popular or the ones they like the most. So a bunch of these earlier ones are going to be really good. The left-right game is about a game where you drive a car to first left, first right, over and over. And it takes you on this long journey through this group of like Arizona Mad Max kind of adventurers as they progress through this game, which throws them into increasingly like liminal and supernatural, like weird alternate reality stuff. They run into like a bunch of different obstacles. Like there's weird towns with no like noise. There's like a man who gets in your car but you can't talk to, or else you like get cursed. And if you miss a turn, you start like melting through reality. There's just so many cool like environments and scenes and little like just concepts, you know. All of this, you know, as a foundation for the characters, which, you know, are pretty well written. They're not perfect, but there's a good variety of different people, and the story does a good job of like exploring how they interact with each other and how that affects their story and everything. I will say one thing though, one big critique of mine is at the end it gets a little too cosmic, I guess is the word. Not to spoil anything, it gets a little time loop, like you were always meant to do this cosmic. I'm not a fan. All in all though, I know I keep saying that, I keep saying all in all things considered, still a great story. Going right into A tier. Next up is Gregory88. This is a Twitter ARG about a guy who inherits his grandpa's lake house, and upon moving in there, he finds an eyeless lady watching him from the woods. And later throughout the story, he finds out the local town sacrifices their kids to giant eggs. The first half of the story is decent. It's pretty creepy. They incorporate like homemade videos in the Twitter ARG, which really is a great way to buy you into a story, make it feel real in a way. But towards the end, it just, I don't know. It does not know how to end itself. It introduces all these different things, and it never never leads anywhere. It's just kind of all over the place. Still fun, just doesn't know how to end itself properly. Going into C tier. Alright, next is The Thing in the Basement is Getting Better at Mimicking People. Yeah, what a title. This story is a pump fake, It starts off pretty hot. We hear immediately from the start of the story about a girl who burned alive in her own basement. And we have a detective who is interviewing her brother and showing him audio recordings that she took before she died. Interesting premise, but it just falls off a cliff. It gets super goofy and cartoony. There's one specific line that these guys mention, like in episodes after this. It's so Monster Hunter, huh? I don't know if I should include that. That's kind of cringe. Anyway, it just gets into super goofy territory and ends up very, very lame. It doesn't work. D tier. Next up is 1999, another one of those lost media kind of stories. And it goes the FNAF route of literally having a guy who in a bear costume who lures little kids into his cult, whatever, to murder them. It's an alright, idea. It's just, I wasn't feeling this one. Maybe it's the FNAF kind of undertones and everything that just ruined it, but the whole Lost Children show, I feel like it's kind of milked. I've seen it too many times. I'm not feeling it. C tier. I will, after we're done with everything, go through this tier list again and actually rank things by order. Like this in front of this, that in front of this, and also maybe switch some things up. I want to try to have a pretty good balance here, Bell curve is the word. Anyway, next one is called The Showers. It's about a guy who hears a legend, a story from his old high school teacher about a creepy farm in the middle of nowhere. He goes out to find it, and turns out it's creepy. A couple of things, it just, first of all, feels way too convenient. His teacher just told him about a farm. In the whole Great 48 United States, he was able to find this one specific farm. I don't know. Obviously, it has to happen for the story, but it feels super convenient. It doesn't work at all. And then, the horror elements aren't really fleshed out at all. It's not really scary, I feel like there's not much going on. You're put in a scary environment. You're like, maybe things are going to happen, but nothing really does. I put in here, definitely could have done more with the setup. Yeah. I'm going to put this one, again, in C tier. Okay, moving on, we have No End House. I like this one. Plot summary is that for $500, this guy unknowingly enters an infinite haunted house with supernatural powers that mess with all your different senses in fun ways. Yeah, it's a good story. Not much in the way of an actual storyline or plot, but I really think it does better not having one. It just kind of takes you on a tour of all these different fun, liminal kind of things it does to you. In this room, you can't hear anything. In this room, you're imagining bugs all over your skin. It works well. It's a fun horror story. Going comfortably into A tier. All right. Next up is Creepy Grab Bag number 1. This one includes Squidward's Sewer Slide, Ben Drowned, and Normal Corn for Normal People. I feel goofy saying that, but there's got to be a reason that all the other YouTubers say that. I might get drone striked by Susan Wood, whoever the CEO is, if I say the actual title. The corn story does a fun job of encapsulating kind of the mystique of the early internet before things were really like corporatized, kind of going on an adventure, finding like these different little hidden websites just by word of mouth. And out of 3 of these, it's the only one with any actual shock value, like any actual horror. Been Drowned is about a haunted Zelda game, and it should have been like a quarter of the length it was. It dragged on so long, it got so boring, and also just inserts these like references constantly. It's such a Redditor story. And then the Squidward story is just pretty dumb, but this is one of the few ones that I knew before ever listening to this, just because it was infamous, for how stupid it was back in the day. With that, we're going to put it, once again, into C tier. Okay, Tommy Taffy. I hate this story. And I put in here in my notes, I was conflicted between putting it in B and D, and I'll explain that. It's awful and gross and horrible and just not fun to listen to at all, but that's the point, and it does a good job at what it sets out to do, which is make you feel uncomfortable and horrible. That being said, I also feel like the heavy themes here are just kind of turned into a joke. Like, there's no setup, they don't have weight, it just seems like he's writing awful things just to make you feel awful. None of it like earns its place, none of it has weight, it's gross. I hate it. So, do you decide between how good it is at what it wants to do versus how much you like it? And I'm just going to go with how much I like it, because recommending this to someone, which is kind of what a tier list is, I don't recommend that you listen to this. I had it in D tier originally, but it's going in F. I hate it. Next up is My Wife Has Been Peeking at Me From Around Corners. Wait, you might be saying, if you are a dedicated Creepcast fan, isn't Greylock the next story on the Creepcast channel? Yes, that's correct, but I listen to these while I'm at work on Spotify, and so none of the Creep TV episodes are on here, none of that. Sorry. If you want me to do a part 2, maybe where I put the Creep TV episodes and maybe the Patreon ones and, any ones that have come out after I've made this video, let me know. Anyway, back on track. My wife has been peeking at me from around corners. It's what the title says. She goes insane and starts just peeking at him. I like the story, somewhat, but it doesn't really wrap up that well, and I think there's just a ton of fat in this story. Like, it could have been so much shorter than it was, and it would have been way more effective and fun to listen to. Going into D tier. Okay, now we have Psychosis, which is a very solid one. This is one of the older stories on here, and it's very well done. It depicts someone going into a schizophrenic breakdown where they start getting paranoid about everything around them. It does a great job of keeping you guessing whether or not he's going insane or if he's right about all the things he thinks he notices in the world around him. There's so many weird things that keep piling up in this story that you understand why he's going crazy, but also, looking at it from an outside perspective, he is just going insane. So it does a fun job of keeping you guessing whether or not, he's right or he's crazy. Another thing, this story also does a great job of making you feel stir crazy and paranoid too. Like, it really puts you in the mindset of being just locked in a house all day with, not speaking to anyone for days. Side note, the whole anecdote in the middle from Hunter about Diego, this, janitor he used to live with when he was in his college years, was just hilarious. I had to point that out. Having super funny moments like that on top of a good story just makes us want to treat. I'm going to put it solidly in A tier. Okay, next we have Feed the Pig, which is by the same author as Tommy Taffy. And you'll see as this episode goes on, I don't like this author and I don't like the stories he makes. This one is no exception. It's about a guy who gets put in purgatory for trying to hang himself, and he escapes purgatory by getting eaten by a giant pig. There are some cool body horror descriptions, but I don't really like body horror to begin with, and as a narrative, it's just not very strong or thought out. I don't like it. And also, at the start of the story, a kid just gets blasted in the head by a shotgun for no reason, which is is a little encapsulation of this author. It's just horrible things happening, just shock for the sake of it. You know, you can kind of sprinkle a little story in there, but really he just wants to describe gory, awful, uncomfortable stuff. I don't know if it's F tier, but it's gonna barely slip its way into D. Next up we have Stolen Tongues, which is about a couple that goes on a mountain retreat, and then the girl gets possessed by a Wendigo type of thing, basically. And from there, their lives just kind of all go downhill. I like the story. You know, it's well done. And also, I'm a sucker for, like, cryptid type stories, like Wendigo, Goatman, Bigfoot, Mothman, that kind of thing. There's a soft spot in my heart. The characters do make a bunch of dumb decisions, which is pretty frustrating. Especially the girl's parents lying for, like, no reason about the girl having, like, connection with this, like, haunted place previously, and just screws over the main character. And there's no reason for them to lie. They're just doing it for fun. It's annoying. There is also a funny bit in the episode where the hosts joke about how, given the situation where your wife is, like, possessed now, they would just immediately leave and go to the Bahamas, which is a pretty funny bit throughout the episode. Solid story all around, you know, B tier. Good, you know, definitely above average, but not insane. Okay, next we have Creepy Grab Bag number 2. I must not have liked this episode very much because my notes just say 3 short stories, all kind of forgettable, D tier. And I don't really remember what is in this one, so I'm just going to follow my notes. Okay, next we have It Breathes, It Bleeds, and It Breeds. This is about a man that has a tumor that starts turning into a talking parasite that, because he's extremely lonely, he finds a friend in. This is a pretty well done story. I generally don't like body horror at all, which you'll come to see in the rest of this episode. But this isn't too gross for me. You know, my weak little soul can handle this one, so it's still in the realm of fun. Putting it in B tier. I don't know how strong I feel about this being in B tier. I am definitely going to switch some of these around. But we got to finish the episode first. Next is My Job is Watching a Woman Trapped in a Room. I would say somewhat interesting for like 30 minutes, and then it just drags on and on and on with no direction or substance or anything for 2 hours. Very boring. This one goes into F tier. Waste of my time. Next up is Tales from the Gas Station. This seems to be a cult classic among this podcast fan base. It's a collection of short little accounts from a supernatural gas station, and it's told from the perspective of a very jaded gas station employee, which adds, you know, a little element of humor, just how nonchalant he is about all the crazy stuff happening around him. It gets pretty Reddity, which is a term I will definitely use on some of these other episodes. Most of the time, it's not egregious. It's still funny. It's not over the line into like Marvel movie humor. So, all in all, fun story with some likable characters. I enjoyed it. Putting that bad boy in B tier. Next up is My Wife Has Taken Our Roleplay Too Far. I love when a story leaves you with something to chew on at the end. And this story does that well. It is 2 different accounts, 2 sides of the same coin, about a situation in which a couple takes role-playing as a, you know, nurturing mommy and needy baby. Just remember, these are 2 adults. And it just gets really weird. They both take it too far, and then it starts to get paranormal and or like just hallucinati. Both accounts are mirrored from each other, and it's fun to leave the story trying to read between the lines into what actually happened. And the hosts have some fun theories about it, and, like I said, it's fun when a story leaves you with something. They don't explain everything. I really appreciate it about this. It's a funny thumbnail, but it's going into B tier. Next up is My Dog Was Lost for 3 days, and what came back wasn't my dog. Dog got possessed. You can probably get that from the title. Average level story, but forgot about this. The bit about Hunter's dog getting executed by his grandpa right next to him when he was younger is insane. And I don't want to spoil the whole bit, but it's pretty funny, and it definitely bumps up this video. It kind of saves it a little bit. Another one in B tier. Next up is Deep Woods. This was written by the same author as Borrasca, and we'll see in the future, she might be a one-hit wonder. It's about a girl and a best friend that find a lost town out in the middle of the woods that is like an urban legend. And they find an abandoned church and accidentally let out a demon whose power was, or is, that he makes things like disappear from existence in history and stuff. Years later, she goes back to stop it and ends up just letting it out again. Bruh. I really enjoy the section of the characters being young. This author is very good at that, as we saw in Borrasca. But the writing and some of the choices that the characters make later in the story, it just falls apart. It gets absurd and just, falls off a cliff. Still a very fun idea. I don't hate it. It's definitely fun to listen to. But it's going in C tier. Alright, now we have SCP-3000. I'm with Hunter, who is, let me explain. Hunter and Isaiah, which is Meat Cannon and Windigoon, are the hosts of this podcast. I'm with Hunter on not being a big fan of SCP stuff, generally. There's definitely some fun concepts in there, but I feel like putting it in the government document, Epstein file kind of format, just, it shackles it. These concepts, I feel, 99% of the time would be much better being explored narratively than kind of as an exposition. You get it. However, this SCP is definitely one of the ones which is a fun concept, and the story is interesting and well done enough that even through the weird FBI document format, it still shines through as a fun story. C tier. Alright, next up we have Ted the Caver, and this is a banger. I love this story. It is one of the sleepers that I just discovered while going through the whole catalog that never really gets mentioned, and it was definitely a diamond in the rough, which is kind of a fun metaphor since this is a caving thing. It's a blog from a cave diver who goes in this cave with his friend, and they find like a hole in the back of the cave, and they get excited because they know if they like tunnel out this rock and open the hole big enough to where they can squeeze through, they'll be in a cave that no human has ever set foot in. Right there, that's what gets them hyped up. And so they spend a bunch of time drilling out this rock, blah blah. And while they're doing it, some creepy noises like screaming and wind. Sometimes there's wind, sometimes there's not. Weird stuff coming out of this hole. And because of how obsessed with it they are, they keep going. There's photos included with this, so I would recommend watching this episode on YouTube. And it all is just super realistic. I'm 99% sure these guys did actually find a hole in a cave and drill it out and squeeze through it. Like, these photos are real. It's just they added the supernatural stuff as a fun kind of, creepypasta. The horror of being stuck deep below the earth in a cave where there's no one knows you're there. You literally are isolated from the whole world. That's a horror in its own. And then the whole thing of squeezing your body through this tiny crack and the creepy supernatural stuff, it all blends together super well. I love it. This is definitely one of my favorite ones. As a little cherry on top, this story is also ancient. It is pre-9/11. This is probably the first creepypasta ever, and I love it. I originally had it in A tier, but it might be S. I don't know. I'm going to stick it in S. I'm going to stick it in A for now. We'll decide more on this later. Just know it's an awesome story. Next is The Whistler at 3:03 a.m. It's 2 stories in this episode. The first one is unrelated to the title. It's about a guy using voodoo to ward off death from his dying mom. It's fine. It's deservedly emotional. You know, his mom's dying, but I don't know, it really doesn't do it for me. I'm not a big fan. The second one, however, is pretty good. On its own, it would be an A-tier story, but it's coupled with this other one in this episode, so gotta average it out. It's about a family who moves into this supernaturally wonderful neighborhood. You know, everyone's happy, kids are playing, barbecues galore, whatever. There's one rule, though, that everyone in the neighborhood has to follow. There is a whistler at 3:03 a.m. who walks down the road and whistles, and you cannot look at him, or else you get cursed. Just, everything will be perfect. Just don't look at this guy. And of course, some new kid moves in and has a sleepover and looks at the thing. Though, you know, because he's dumb. This story is quick, very effective with its horror. You know, there's only a couple scary scenes, but they're well done. You know, you get engrossed into it. And the best of all, the characters, besides that kid, are completely realistic and make the smart decisions, you know, like the logical thing. If you can't look at it, don't look at it. And they block off the windows and everything. It's a great story. I love it. Once again, that Whistler one would be A tier, but it's coupled with that other one, so it's got to average out into B. Next up, we have Goatman, Laughing Jack, and more. This is a recording from a live event they did, which adds a fun element, you know, to the story, to have an audience reacting to what they say and everything. The Goatman story was decent. It reminds me of a video game, the Goatman video game. I remember watching people play back in the day, which honestly I remember being better than this story. But I remember that video game scaring me so bad when I was a little kid. Like the screaming from the woods and the radio, and turns out you weren't talking to a person, it was the Goatman. Really fun. Anyway, Laughing Jack is so bad that it's good, and Mountain Mayhem is alright. I'm pretty sure by the Borrasca author again. It's about an abandoned theme park that these people, you know, own, and then turns out there's a secret to it, and they all die. It's alright. It's a fun setting. Just, you know, it's good. But I don't really have that much to say. This one is going in B tier. Next up is the Diarrhea House, which I always want to say Diarrhea House. It's a house that is basically a cosmic Venus flytrap. Basically, it makes you want to go inside of it, and then once you're inside of it, it eats you or something. I like the email log kind of format they use for this one. Plus, it's a well-done story. It's unfortunate that it kind of ends prematurely because the author had to cut it off. It was going a fun route of, like, you know, tying this, like, evil witchcraft house into, like, real-life celebrity, like, Satanist, whatever. It talks about, at the very end, Mr. Crowley from the Ozzy Osbourne song, which is fun. I would have liked to see where it went, but, you know, it happens. As the story stands in its current state, B tier. Next up is I'm a cop and I keep getting called to the same house. At first, the story does alright with setting up an interesting situation, but as is so common in these stories, it just, you know, and then just falls off a cliff. It just ends by explaining everything. For no, like, you get it already, and then the story just has to tell you explicitly, which is a solid way to just spoil any story, just ruin any fun thing you might have had, leave a horrible taste in your listener's mouth. I hate it. As you'll probably see a lot in this series, there's so many stories that are good, but then just feel the need for some reason to explain everything at the end, and it just tanks it. Next is if you're armed at the Glenmont Metro, which I think is a train station somewhere in the UK or whatever. If you're armed at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me. 2 stories here, both of which are very cool and novel ideas for a horror story, and both of the concepts are explored pretty well in the short time they both get. Solid episode. B tier. Next is the only other astronaut on this mission died 6 weeks ago. 2 astronauts on a ship, one of them dies, and then the other one, after he dies, finds out he had predicted his own death in this crazy rambling journal. And then it turns out the other person that died became a frozen space zombie because they just kind of pushed his body bag out into space, like put him in a trash bag and just let him sit out there. While he was out there, he turned into a zombie and starts attacking things. I'm not really doing it justice with that description because the story rocks. It's just solid fun. It's good. The mystery isn't anything super crazy, but the tension and everything is gripping. A very punchy, just awesome space story. I feel like we don't get enough space stories. It's a fun one. I'm going to put it in A tier for now, but I might change that. Next is Berries in the Window, which is about a guy who has a disabled kid, and because he hates his kid so much, he goes to a Jim Jones kind of cult to try to cure him. And then he learns that the real cure was to just love your kid just the way he is. So anyway, that's going in D tier. Next is I Dared My Best Friend to Ruin My Life. It is just what the title says, but it is just taken to an extreme, just anime kind of level, super Reddit-y the whole time. It's awful. It's definitely something to drudge through if you're trying to listen to this, but it does definitely fall into the so bad it's good category. And Windigoon, one of the hosts, is having a fun time with it, just the whole way through. And it turns into something, a pretty crappy story, but it turns it into an enjoyable listen. Hearing Hunter just absolutely suffer and Windigoon just have the time of his life is super fun. It's going to B tier. Now we have I'm blind and I'm not sure how many steps my staircase has. Blind guy counts his steps, as he's going up and down them because he's blind. It's just something he does. And one day he notices that the steps change, the amount of steps. And it turns out he opens some kind of portal to hell or something, and a demon slowly starts learning to mimic him. Because he's blind, and as a listener, since it's a text story, you are also blind, it does a great job at doing jump scares from like a blind guy's perspective. Kind of throughout the episode, you get little different moments of like, he's right behind me, isn't he? But it is done well. Like it is effective. It's still fun. I will say though, kind of makes a couple dumb decisions at the end, but doesn't affect it too much. Really cool concept, really well done. I'm going to put it in B tier, maybe even A. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to put it in A tier instead of B. Okay, the pigeons around here aren't real. 3 stories by the same author. One is about an annoying influencer dying from a stunt. Decent campfire story. Other one is about a mysterious force field that is making people silently disappear in like a little house on the prairie kind of setting. It's definitely my favorite of the bunch, but that being said, none of these are, insane. Third one is about animals getting possessed by evil pigeon eggs, and it's a crapper. It's not a good story. Forgettable, whatever. The other 2, though, are pretty fun, so we are going to put this whole episode in C tier. The Hidden Web Page is next. A character who has an old internet friend that mysteriously starts messaging them again after years and years of disappearing offline. And it sends him on a journey back through the old internet and, all its different mysteries and his nostalgia for it and everything. This is a good little tale, as I put on here. I have personally a really weird sense of wonder towards like the early internet, even though I wasn't around to experience it. I was probably like 2 years old. Ancient internet just kind of has this eerie feeling of just mystery. It really, once again, I didn't experience it, but my idea of it is that you really are like exploring. Things aren't so streamlined and easy to navigate as they are now. So there could be these little secret little pockets of like different websites and forums and everything. And it helped that back then the internet was actually alive. There wasn't bots everywhere, so you actually interacted with people. This story, like I mentioned, uses the vibes of the early internet, the mystery and everything, effectively, and it throws some creepy elements in there. It's pretty well done. I am comfortable putting this one in B tier. Next one. My crew and I are stuck on an abandoned ship. I like this one. This one is about a haunted ghost ship kind of thing. These characters get lost in a storm, and then they end up on this ghost ship and have to survive the Scooby-Doo ghosts on there. The way the storm is described in the beginning is really well done. I just read Moby Dick recently, and it tickled the same kind of itch of just, there's something about pirates and nautical and ocean, whatever. It just gets to a man's soul sometimes. The ghost scenes in this one are well done, you know. It's effective at, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you turn around and suddenly everyone's gone. Plus, it's good to have a fun, just pirate story once in a while. I'm going to put it in A tier. Now we have Azalea's Cookhouse is a family restaurant. Kind of a goofy title, honestly. But this is about a waiter who works in a high-class hole-in-the-wall, basically. Like, it's secretive, but rich people go there because it's exclusive or whatever. Eventually, after working there for a while, he gets blackmailed into disposing of bodies for the restaurant, which is their secret, like, flip side service. I really, really like the way the story paints the scene of the restaurant. It makes it easy for your mind's eye to picture the kind of setting the character's in, and just, you know, you can smell the food, you can see what's on the walls. Really effectively painting kind of a background for this story. The plot is pretty good. Not really any complaints, just a solid story. Put it in B tier. It's definitely going to be higher than most of these though. Now we have Creepypasta Classics, The Rake, Candle Cove, and Mr. Widemouth. This is a collection of various short, classic creepypasta stories. It's a ton of fun to listen to. The stories themselves are intentionally bad, like they picked ones that are crappers, but getting to hang out parasocially with the hosts and just poke fun at these stories and laugh and have a good time really, really makes this fun. And none of the stories overstay their welcome. Like, you know, they don't drag, even though they're bad. They don't bore you. It's a really fun episode. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Now we have Dagon's Mirror, which is about a guy who has a weird uncle that put him in his will. And the will and the house that got left to him leads to him uncovering a cursed family history. I think the story starts well with the setting and, you know, the premise and everything. And the scene with the mirror in the basement is fun. How it, like, turns into a portal and stuff starts crawling out of it when it falls over. That's fun. But towards the end, when the main character goes to meet Uncle Fishy in some random castle and he just info dumps all over us, it just really kills it right at the end. That being said, not bad. I Pretended to Be a Missing Girl. A homeless, vagrant girl finds a poster for a missing girl who looks just like her, and since the girl looks rich, the homeless vagrant decides to try and swindle her family out of some money, since, you know, they look similar. Maybe she can trick them. She gets over there and turns out the girl didn't actually go missing. Her dad kidnapped her and has her still in his, like, nuclear bunker. And, yeah. It's a fun setup, like, conceptually. You know, it's like a good plot twist, fun reveal. And, you know, it's pretty simple. Whatever. B tier. I Wrote Myself a Letter. I Got a Response is our next story. It's exactly what the title says. This guy writes himself a letter, and a clone from an alternate dimension puts a response back on his desk. And then they keep talking back and forth, and eventually the evil clone from the other dimension takes his place and steals his girl and whatever. So now he has to escape from the other dimension. The story goes into the idea that, like, they're the same people. Both people in both dimensions are the same guy. It's just the guy in the evil dimension turns evil because the dimension is evil. And then once he goes back in the good dimension, he starts to turn good. And the original good guy goes in the evil dimension and starts to turn evil. I like the part where the main character he needs paper to summon the portal, basically. And he keeps some in his shoe because he knows the evil guy is going to come after him. Which is convenient, but it does feel logical. Like, that is a good idea that does make sense. So it's fair, which, you always like from a story. That being said, though, the alternate dimension didn't feel very thought out. Just kind of felt, I don't know. I couldn't really put myself in the shoes of, our character when he goes over there very much. Well, that's B tier. B tier is getting kind of clogged up. I might have to switch some things around at the end here. Okay. Next up we have the Red Tower. Boring. I saw a comment on the Spotify episode that said this felt like the author just pleasuring himself with the thesaurus for 3 hours, and I agree. I couldn't get through like more than 30 minutes. It was super boring. I don't like it. Putting that bad boy in F tier. Okay, now we have the Burger Entries, which is about a world where disgusting fast food slop slowly replaces normal reality. The story keeps a pretty comedic tone, and I like it, kind of. The food descriptions are pretty gross, like disgusting, so definitely don't watch this one while you're eating. But all in all, C tier. Okay, now we have the Spire in the Woods, and I have a lot to say about this because it is my favorite one. I love the story so much. It's about an urban legend of a mysterious bell tower deep in the woods from an old abandoned town. And it turns out it's real. And everyone who hears the bells starts to become obsessed with the sound of them, and it like enters their brain and kind of possesses them. The story is like a 90s high school romance with a horror twist. It really does a great job, the story, of putting you in the mind, like just, right in the mind and the thinking and everything of a 16-year-old boy, which for me is not ancient history, let's just say. He becomes obsessed with this girl, and at first you're kind of rooting for him. Obviously you want everything to work out. You want them to, be happy romantically. But eventually he just takes it too far. Like every time it's just like a little too much, a little too much, a little too much. He keeps pushing her, and eventually he takes it just way too far, even though he doesn't really understand what he's doing. Because he kept pushing it more and more and more. So just a little more doesn't seem that crazy, even though this was what's acceptable. He's already all the way over here. Once again, this is some more of those heavy themes, just warning you. The worst part about this is, from the perspective of a horned up 16-year-old boy, his decisions kind of make sense. Like he's not like an evil person. He never does anything that's like crazy. Like they make sense, which is kind of a good horror element because it makes you feel awful. Just let me get one thing clear. I never did anything like this, but it is scary how possible it is being in the mindset of a young boy like that. He's just tunnel visioned on this girl and trying to get with her, that he doesn't really take a step back and realize what his obsession is doing and how much it's hurting her, which is what the bells and the obsession with the bells is like a parallel there. The bells use this obsession with the girl to drive him crazy, basically. This is kind of the story from the whole podcast that really stuck with me the most. It just stuck in my soul for a while. It kind of changed my outlook on life. For like 2 weeks, I wanted to be like pure. I don't know. I wanted to like hug my mom, kiss my girlfriend, just make sure everyone was happy and treat all the women in my life with the utmost respect. It reminds me of that Kanye lyric about seeing women as something to nurture, not something to conquer. Obviously, Kanye is a great role model for everyone, but that is just one of the many, many things Kanye gets right about what he says. Also, the atmosphere that the story sets up of a desperate, freezing winter environment. Just, I think about it so often whenever I'm in a situation where my bones are frozen and I just want warmth. Because that is a great metaphor to kind of help you understand what the bells in the story do to you. Because when you're freezing cold, all you think about is warmth. You are just completely tunnel visioned. That is all you ever want in your whole life, and that's all you're ever going to want. And you just need warmth. That's kind of how the characters feel when hearing the bells. It doesn't matter what it costs them in their whole life. They need to just hear them again and get closer. One more thing, a fun side note. Steven Spielberg bought the rights to this book and is supposed to be making a movie based on the story. And so I sent him a letter with a suggestion that he should put a Radiohead song in the film, because the kind of the vibes of that music kind of fits the story. And also our main character is mentioned wearing a Radiohead shirt. So I put that suggestion in a letter and mailed it to his studio, and I got a response. They said, please don't message us ever again. Thank you. Anyway, easy S tier. My favorite episode. Alright. Now that we had such a great one, of course we have to have a horrible one. Next up is Ticci Toby. This is about a Jeff the Killer knockoff that also is part of the Slender Man Extended Universe fanfiction. Pretty dumb. Also, it's written by the same guy who made Feed the Pig and Tommy Taffy. So he's 3 for 3 with awful stories that I hate. F tier. Now we have Greywater, which is a collection of classic ritual instruction booklet kind of creepypastas like Bloody Mary or The Midnight Game. I never played any of these personally growing up because, I had the fear of God in me and I didn't want to mess around with any demon stuff. Also, I was terrified, when I was a little kid. Fun stories, fun time, not bad. Going into C tier. Now we have Borrasca Part 5. The earlier one was parts 1 through 4. This is the final wrap-up. The sequel that no one needed. I'll get into it. Years after the first story, they go back to get revenge on the evil people that were in charge, and yeah. The story is a letdown. It's not even that horrible of a story in its own right, like if this was on its own. It's just the fact that this is supposed to follow up one of the greatest stories on this whole podcast, and then it just spits on the image. It spits on the grave of everything that the first Borrasca was. It's so disgraceful. It hurts. All the heavy themes, everything that was in Borrasca, it's all just joked about. It has a bunch of super cringy lines in it. A bunch of like, oh, I knew you were going to do that, but I knew you were going to do that, so I did this, and I knew you were going to do that, and all it does is detract from the original story. I just wish it was never made. Also, I'm an alpha Sam. One of the classic lines from this story. Borrasca, I put on here, Borrasca was like Avengers Infinity War in the sense that the bad guys won and it made the story more impactful. This one is like Avengers Endgame. I personally didn't like. The good guys go and pull some time travel, Deus Ex Machina BS out of their butts, and the story just loses all of its grounding and impact, and it's just not good. This one is going into F tier. Okay, next up is The Sun Vanished. Can you guess what this story is about? Aliens appear as floating strobe lights, and they quietly blot out the sun and invade Earth, and we follow a Twitter account from a group of survivors. Don't get me wrong, the story starts off fun. Cool ideas, well done video clips to accompany them, but it just draws itself out forever and ever. And it just completely loses focus. It's to the point, at the end is there's literally a year between posts, like in real life, and like you're waiting a year. You left off on, oh, I'm traveling across the country and surviving. Stay tuned. And then a year later, it's like, I'm still traveling across the... It's like, just end it. The story just, it's over. You don't have to drag it on so long. But it insists on doing it. Definitely, if you're writing any of these, please learn how to end your stories properly. Don't let them drag on like this. It's obnoxious. Okay, now we have Camp Oakwood. We are in a line of stinkers here. Okay, so I listen to these stories while I'm at work on headphones because I'm allowed to. And after basically spending the entire day listening to the last story and this one, my day was ruined. They were both awful. I wish I didn't have to listen to them. I wish I could go back. This story is about a summer camp run by a cult, and it has a shred of intrigue at the start, like just a little sprinkling. But then it spends 70%. Maybe that's a little. I'll be generous and say 60% of the story, literally just repeating itself and explaining to you something that it already explained, which was something that you already could pick up on. So, I don't know. It drives me crazy when stories do this, where they literally just feel the need for some reason to just talk to you like you're 2 years old. Like you don't get the plot elements that they're setting up. Why are you writing a story? Why do you have the first part of the story if you're just going to explain everything? Just give me the second half. Or just cut the annoying part out. It feels so simple as someone who just reads these and doesn't actually write them to just not include this stuff. I don't know why it's such a common thing on all these stories to just overanalyze and explain and tell us everything. Nobody wants it. I don't know why all these stories fall for that. Anyway, this one's boring. It's going into F tier. Next up, we have Ensorcelled in the Earth. I've never heard that word before, but I assume it means squeezed or something. I don't know. This story is like Ted the Caver, but worse. It tries to go the cosmic horror route, and not in a way that I enjoy, frankly. It definitely has some awesome lines. You can tell the author is a good writer. Like they have some bars, and all in all, it is well written. It's just, I really don't feel like the Lovecraftian spin on this just works, Also, just use normal words. Instead of the reflective tapidium lucium, you could just say cat eyes. Or like eyeball reflection. You don't have to be scientific. Reminds me of that a thing of like, can you pass me the sodium chloride? It's not smart. It's just pretentious and obnoxious. It bugs me. With that being said, D tier. Okay, my sugar daddy asks me for weird favors. 4 short stories by the same author. First one, girl has to carry out weird tasks for money. That's basically it. I do like the ending reveal that she forgot one of the rules because I forgot it. So that little plot twist feels fair. It's fun, Second story, which is Point Pine, which is pretty forgettable. Third story is about someone narrating your life, and then suddenly they start saying creepy things about how you're going to die. Fun idea. The fourth one is about a generational clown curse, which once again is just fine. All these stories are pretty average. So you take a bunch of average stories, and what do you get? You put them in average tier. So straight into C it goes. Okay, finally, ending the long list of, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories that were between C and F tier. We finally have a good one. This is I Work at a Half-Priced Voodoo Shop. The story centers around a Coraline kind of button-eye shop owner from like Louisiana or something. And we are his new employee. We go through a bunch of different little vignettes and conflicts with a fun supernatural backing to tie everything together. All pretty cool conceptually and pretty cool in execution. Really enjoyed this one. Putting that in A tier. Boom. It's getting kind of hard to reach. Okay, here's another heavy hitter. We had a famine, but now we're feasting. 2 good stories back to back. Mother Horse Eyes is the ultimate story for any fans of the Joe Rogan Experience. It's got LSD, ancient history, the CIA, Nazis, conspiracy theories, alternate dimensions, future AI dystopias, all of it with a biblical kind of undertone. On top of all that, the story also is kind of a perspective piece about struggling with addiction. It just tickles me, and I'm sure a lot of you, at all the right places. Just all those little niche interests you have, like the kind of YouTube videos you watch. It's got all those elements all in one. I would recommend watching the Windigoon YouTube channel video rather than the 2 episodes on Creepcast, just because it's more put together, but it's still a great story either way. There's just so much in the story, I can't really get into it all here. But I just want to say, after I watched the Windigoon video for the first time, which was before all this, I had a hard time deciphering like what is actual history and what this story talks about. The way that it uses conspiracy theory, kind of realistic fake history elements, and also how meta the story gets in like the author talking about himself in the story kind of thing. All of that works together to just kind of plant itself in your head and leave you kind of catching yourself sometimes, thinking that some of the stories that you heard in here are actual history. Like, oh yeah, the CIA did make portals with LSD. Oh no, wait, that was Mother Horse Eyes. I've definitely caught myself doing that a couple times. I think all of that, though, is just a testament to how legendary this story is. Easy S tier. This one's great. Okay, now we weren't allowed to talk to women. A southern family has to breed with a moth creature. That's also their mom. Makes sense for, the South. D tier. Now we have It Came From a Fan, ... Multiple stories. First one was trash. Second one was actually pretty well done and interesting. And then the third one was kind of cliche with the whole end of the world thing. Third one was kind of cliche with the whole predicting the end of the world and it's going to be in like 5 years. Whatever. And the fourth one was just kind of sad. I put, though, that the guys riff-raffing the whole time saved this one from being D tier. So, I'm going to trust my notes and put it in C tier. Right, now we have Fleshgate. Classic creepypasta about a group of hikers getting tangled up with a shape-shifting monster and then having to escape from the woods with their lives. The story messes with you pretty well. Reminds me of that Rick and Morty episode where the monster tricks them into thinking that, oh yeah, Uncle Tim he's been a part of our lives the whole time. It like puts fake memories in their head. Same kind of concept. The story does a good job of administering that and kind of letting you on to it being fake when the story wants you to. The part at the end about the main character having kind of an internal struggle about killing the monster who he thought was his girlfriend, because from his perspective, he killed his girlfriend. And even though it was a monster, he knows that he has it in him to kill someone that he loves, even if it wasn't really her, which kind of messes with him. Which is, it's a cool idea. It's a fun way to explore that concept. I dig it. Putting that one, earning its place in B tier. Okay, now we have The Church in the Woods. An IT guy gets sucked into helping a weird cult church and then ends up sticking around and learning about their demon worship because he's in love with this girl who's there. Also, she's British for some reason. Gross. Good story. It's a little cliche to me, the whole thing of cult in the woods wants to summon a demon that wants to end the world. I feel like I've seen that too much. But not too bad. Putting that in C tier, maybe B. And we're putting it in C. The ocean is much deeper than we thought. There is a mystery pit that the scientists have discovered inside the Mariana Trench, which contains an ancient life form that is able to like absorb all the solid matter around it and like turn it into more cells. The whole thing of being trapped inside of like a Subnautica base at the bottom of the ocean does a similar thing as to being stuck in the bottom of a cave or being stuck in a space station. The idea that you are trapped in this location and there's like no way to save you is a sick setting for a horror story. And then the whole thing of them finding a deeper, uncharted part of the ocean and a new kind of form of life, it's all very cool. I like it. Also, the hosts compare this to the Alien movie, kind of the alien monster coming to the spaceship versus the alien life form coming to the ocean pod. Similar kind of concept, so I think it's a good comparison. All things considered, A tier. Next is I clean hoarder houses for a living, which is about a woman who finds a painting that's actually a portal inside of a house. And then her and her boss go and explore the kind of Narnia that's on the other side of it. They go deeper into this alternate dimension and weird stuff starts happening to them. They discover weird things. Yeah. Very cool setup. And I like the kind of enchanted feeling that the other side takes on, like in the way it's described. Kind of reminds me of the Twilight Forest mod from Minecraft, if any of you get that reference. Also, bringing on a second character in the story is kind of a rare thing for these stories, and it does a good job of making it feel more realistic, despite how unrealistic the circumstances are. That being said, like I mentioned earlier, I hate body horror, and there's a scene where a character is like has little pockets of worms like infesting him and popping out, and it's disgusting. He did way too good of a job at just making it like trypophobic and parasites and just disgusting. It makes me feel gross, but you gotta respect, how well done it is. With all that, we're putting it in B tier. Okay, next up is Cupcakes. Another one where I absolutely hate the story. It's basically a My Little Pony torture fanfic. I don't like torture scenes, generally, and I don't like My Little Pony, especially bronies. Grown men who are into My Little Pony. Both things just make me want to puke. So it's going straight into F tier. Now we have The Dead Girl in My Yard, which is about a kid who has a dying mom and a brother, and life just sucks for him, basically. So, as a form of escapism, he befriends a Wendigo, and then he gets turned into one because of how much he hates his family. This is really just a depressing story. The sequence of the kid sneaking out and finding a friend was fun and romantic, romantic in the sense of like a magical midsummer evening, like picture perfect kind of adventure. But I kind of lost the plot towards the end. I don't know if I just wasn't paying enough attention. Doubt it. But towards the end, it loses me. Still earned itself a place in C tier. Okay, next we have Polyamorous Hell. This is just a really gay story, in both of the meanings of that word. The cringe anime kind of dialogue, as well as the characters literally being gay, and all the gay writing descriptions, I didn't finish it, and I don't want to. So it's going straight to F. The flight attendants won't stop crying. A guy is stuck on a plane that is in evil time purgatory, and then he sees the devil and then escapes by jumping out of the plane. Kind of a boring story. I didn't care about the characters or what was happening at all, really, and kind of dragged on. It just wasn't that good. Okay, now we have the Blood Ridge Motel. This is a good one. It's about a family that runs a Gravity Falls kind of tavern in the middle of nowhere, kind of near a national park. And the main character learns that her family, in years past, had made a deal with a group of vampires. So she learns all this once she becomes owner of the hotel, and then goes on a mission to learn about the vampires and go out and defeat them and kill them and everything. I love the story. It's a super solid vampire hunter kind of tale, with some new takes on vampire lore, as well as sticking to all the different established rules that we all know about. So that way you can still follow along with the story. There's lots of tense moments, with the cop and everything, and as well as interacting with the vampires themselves. And then it all ends in a dramatic parking lot brawl. Everything's on fire, everyone's dead. It's fun. I really liked it. Flying all the way up to A tier. Next we have I Talked to God. Kid finds out that his whole family has a secret ability to talk to biblically accurate angels, which the CIA has one in custody somehow. It's almost a cool concept, just I think mostly because I'm a sucker for biblical kind of themes and stories, but it's just not done that well. Plus it does the regular thing of just info dumping everything at the very end of the story and just tanking it. D tier. Now we have There's Something Wrong with Windigoon. I hate this story. It's yet another one by the Tommy Taffy author, Elias Witherow, whatever. Guess what? Just like Tommy Taffy, this story is just about kids and wives being abused just for the fun of it, just to write about it. No message, no payoff, no mystery, no intrigue, just awful to listen to, just for the sake of it. This story was so bad that I originally had Tommy Taffy in D tier, but this story, being written by the same guy and being so awful, dragged them both down into F. So that's where it belongs, right next to its brother. Now we have the Smile Dog. Multiple stories in this one, which are all kind of dumb, but in a fun dumb kind of way. Plus the hosts are in a good mood, so it's not an F tier episode. It's still worth listening to. Next is Accounts from a Lonely Broadcast Station. Similar to Tales from the Gas Station, kind of set up for the story here. It's about a lady who chronicles her unnerving experiences while she works at a radio station in the middle of nowhere. It's a fun kind of spooky, campy story. There's a set of weird rules and just some creepy things happening around the characters. Just a fun listen with some solid use of unsettling kind of imagery. Room 733. A university has an urban legend about a haunted room that makes you unalive yourself. This is a fun ghost story with a couple solid, spooky kind of jump scare moments. Plus, the twist reveal at the end got me pretty good. I do like it. Oh, I forgot to put the last one on the list. It's going in B tier, and so is this one. Next up is The Whistlers. This one is about a group of researchers who try to investigate a local legend about the Whistlers and end up stuck deep in the Arctic woods, fleeing from the Whistlers they were trying to investigate. Turns out they're real. I love the way the story kind of uses the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The legend of the Whistlers is that only one person survives, when the people encounter them. So the characters kind of end up killing each other to speed up the process or whatever, and you don't know whether or not it's actually the Whistlers doing that, or if it's just kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy of people hearing that legend and then making those decisions. Another thing, the setting really sucks you into the idea of being just lost in the middle of a vast woods, just trees for miles, middle of nowhere, no civilization, just completely alone. It's super unrealistic that they survived for the amount of time they did. This story talks about months of time, which they're not living that long, realistically. And I really like how at the end the supernatural forces are kept mysterious. You're not like revealed. You're not tipped off to like what the monster is. You just kind of get to experience the story along with the characters, and you only know as much as they do. I love when a story is able to leave a little mystery at the end and not explain everything. It's a big cherry on top for everything. All that being said, A tier. Next is Journal of an Unknown Soldier. In this one, we follow a group of Wild West dudes who go around killing Indians, and they mess with the wrong one. Catch my drift. And it ends up cursing them, and there's a big owl monster that comes and kills them all. I love the setting and the character interaction here. Just the way the people talk to each other and how you really are planted in the time period. Reminds me a lot of reading Of Mice and Men, which is, I know, kind of an insane comparison for internet horror story to compare it to Mice and Men. There is a bunch of similarity here. You're in kind of an older American time period, 1930s for Mice and Men. This is like 1860s. And you get sucked into the characters and into the world just by listening to them talk. You don't really need much explained to you. You just hear the interaction, and you can pick up on all the different character dynamics and kind of the setting and time period and people you're dealing with. It's really well done. I really like it. Now we have The Smiling Ones on Space Station Mir, whatever. It's a take on the whole lost cosmonaut thing. One of them comes back after decades and decades and just appears out of thin air, and then he starts communicating with the Soviet Space Force HQ. And it seems like he's being held hostage by some kind of alien. And from our perspective in the story, we are a member of the control room just deciding what to do. Do we listen to this guy? Do we help him? Do we, whatever. Solid story and a great concept. One thing, though, I really wish they did not, try to describe the aliens so much. Maybe it could have been effective, but the way this is done, it kind of falls on its face. It was better when they were mysterious. That being said, B tier. My dad ate meat from a deer that walked on two legs. There's an infected deer. Whole town eats it at a barbecue and makes people go full Bird Box. You eat it, and then you just off yourself, immediately. Solid story, interesting little concept, and some well-written moments that do a, decent job at providing a jump scare in a written format, which sometimes is hard to do. But this one manages to do it well, which is a big compliment. B tier. I'm getting a lot of ones in B tier. Okay, now we have The Bearded Man in My Window. Multiple stories in this one again. And we're also in an arena setting. This is a recording from a tour or something. So it's always fun having the crowd interact. The plot twist on one of the stories being hunters was very funny, but the people coming on stage was not really my thing. Specifically, there's one girl. I don't want to hate on her too much, but she was being way too extra, and is kind of hard to listen to. Going into B tier. This one is going to go in C tier. Okay, now we have Dogscape. It's about an apocalypse where a dog meat infection takes over the whole world and turns everything into meat. And we get a little bunch of separate vignettes of people who are just scraping by and surviving. It's pretty good for a collaborative story. A bunch of different unrelated people adding to one narrative. But it is on 4chan, and it, of course, goes into a very weird dog gooner territory. What do you expect? All in all, not too bad, but also definitely not the best. D tier. Okay, we're getting to the home stretch here. We only got a little more than the row left. And now we have Dreams Beneath the Witch Tree. While investigating why someone went crazy, our narrator goes down the same rabbit hole himself, and he uncovers the truth about an old witchcraft curse in his local town. I like the story. It's nice to have some good old witchcraft and madness instead of the creature for once. Also, it uses a cold open kind of style. Like, you start here and then you flash back and make your way back, It does that pretty effectively and uses it to wrap up the story very nicely in the end. I enjoyed it. B tier. Okay, next we have Stairs in the Wood Remake, version 2 remaster. Having the story covered in the normal format lets it truly shine this time. I love the story, and it was definitely muffled last time it was covered by the weird format. The way it uses little excerpts to paint a picture of this weird, mysterious national park is really effective at spinning a yarn and getting you invested in kind of the lore of the world they're in. Plus, the spooky nature of being in the woods alone, the clear missing 411 kind of influence, and all the creative supernatural stuff just makes the story a blast. I'm glad they covered it again and did it justice. It's going into A tier. Okay, now we have Jane the Killer. Some hamster microwaving type of crazy girl just self-inserts herself into this story about how the CIA wants to turn her into a super soldier to avenge her parents' murder, which was at the hands of Jeff the Killer. It's a crappier spin-off of an iconically crappy story. But the bit of them chasing a frog around in the start of the episode, plus them making fun of the story the whole time, does save this one from being too low down. I think it deserves definitely a low C tier. Okay, now we have Drumming in the Clouds, which is about a weird cloud that keeps growing and growing and growing, and the story turns into a rapture kind of narrative. It does a fun thing with that. Instead of people just disappearing, the cloud opens up and vines come out and grab people up, and it's pretty sick. Also love the feeling of dread and hopelessness that this story kind of conveys. This is clearly not something that you can do about. You just kind of have to wait your turn to die. Just the story is lacking pretty much any kind of a central storyline, which definitely loses it some points. I'm going to put it in B tier. Now we have Turn It Off, which is about a duo of kids who go camping and get spooked by a creepy creature. Started off, not hot, pretty bad. But the payoff later in the episode, where they get that moment of the lantern hanging 40 feet in the air, and then the trail of sleeping bags leading into the tent, definitely some good spooks. It redeems itself in the end a little bit. Putting that bad boy in C tier. Last 4 episodes here. First is, I found the bunker of a prepper family, just like the title says. A guy's dog wanders down into some fallout bunker, and we find a bunch of creepy happenings down there. Our protagonist finds out the prepper family turned into mold zombies or something down there, and he has to make his way out from the bottom of the bunker and escape with his life and with the dog. There are also some pretty funny bits from the host as well. All in all, very enjoyable episode and a good premise for a story. Well written, and the biggest thing is all the character choices make sense. The guy goes in there to save his dog and then escapes once it gets scary. Nothing seems forced or dumb at all, which I always appreciate. Putting that in A tier. All right. Okay, now we have the Harbinger Experiment. This is an early creepypasta, clearly very much inspired by the Russian sleep experiment. It's about a demon possession experiment gone wrong. It's well done for such a bare-bones story. I'll put this in B tier. Second to last, we have There's Something Really Weird About My Sexy New Neighbor. 2 teen brothers start creeping on their hot new neighbor lady, and then it turns out she's actually a siren type of creature. The story starts off fine, just kind of annoyingly horny. But then by the end of it, it just drowns itself out. It has too much going on, too hard to follow. Just it kind of, loses traction, I guess is a good way to put that. Unfortunately, D tier. Okay, final one is Happy Appy. I have some things to say. This is a great episode to end the tier list off on, because sometimes you get crappers. You got to take the bad with the good. This story is a certified stinker, let's just say. It's another one of those creepy local TV shows from when you were a kid, but it manages to turn a already boring 30-minute kind of story into a 4-hour series. It never gets any more interesting somehow throughout that whole time. I did not care about the story from the jump, and throughout the whole 4-hour story, that never changed. I cared less and less and less. Also, the hosts were not having fun. Clearly, they were sludging through it just like I was. And usually I would just skip this kind of story, but since it was the last one I'd be reviewing for this recording, I felt obligated to suffer through it. So you're welcome for my diligence, I guess. Don't even listen to this one. It's not even fun bad. It's just offensive. Straight to F tier. Okay, let's go through here a little bit and try to rank things a little more and organize things. It's going to be kind of, this is the best, this is second best, this is third, fourth, like going from left to right is best to worst. Let's start down in F tier. Which one of these is the worst of the worst? This is a tough one. I think the worst ones definitely have to be the ones I didn't finish, you know? So I'm going to put Polyamorous Hell as the very worst one, because not only did I not finish it, it's also uncomfortably gay. This one, Red Tower, is just super boring one. Probably Tommy Taffy, just because it's awful. And then another one by the same author, you know, take note of that. Then I'm going to have Cupcakes, the brony torture. Happy Appy, because it was just miserable to listen to. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with this F tier ranking. Okay, let's start going through these. Sorry, I don't really have much to say. I'm just kind of going through and double checking. Feed the Pig, I'd say definitely is the worst, and then my wife picking me around corners, not too bad. So I'm going to put it at the very top. I'm not really worrying too much about the B and C tier. It's all kind of in the middle. I'm not super strongly opinionated about like what's in front of what. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. If you get super offended that like, I can't believe you put this story ahead of this story, whatever. I think the actual tier it's in that's what I'm focusing on more than the order. Also, I am going to put Ted the Caver in S tier. Left-right game, definitely solid, high A tier. Okay, now for the big one. S tier. Out of these 5, actually, should I throw left-right game in there? Sure. Okay, out of these 6, which one is my favorite? I think, like I said earlier, Spire in the Woods, my favorite. After that, definitely a close one between Mother Horse Eyes and Borrasca. I think I'm going to go with Borrasca. It's more classic. I don't know, no. This is a tough one, I'm telling you. Because Mother Horse Eyes is expansive. It is very fleshed out. Stories on their own, which would be amazing, like standalone stories, but they're all combined into one overarching narrative. It's amazing. But Borrasca has really great character buy-in and a crazy plot twist. And it's a classic on this channel. I think I'm going to put Mother Horse Eyes over it. Controversial, I know, but I'm sticking with my gut. Okay, and after Borrasca, we're going to put probably Ted the Caver. I really like this one, I'm telling you. It's a sleeper. And then Penpal, and then Left Right Game. there any other A tier ones I want to put in there? Don't get too worked up over, the individual order, like I said. Just focus more on the ranking. With that all being said, after having read hours and hours and days of stories, what did I learn? What's my takeaway? 1, thank you to all the authors for giving us all this free entertainment. Thank you to Windigoon and Meat Canyon for such a fun podcast. And then, beyond that, do not over-explain yourself in your story. It's obnoxious. It ruins it. If your viewers are just as smart as you, like, if you get it, they get it. You don't need to over-explain things. Leave it alone. Like, it spoils the story. The other thing is, end your stories properly. Don't drag them on. Don't introduce too much. Just have interesting ideas, but don't have too much. And don't be awful for the sake of being awful. It doesn't make a good story. Sure, it might be shocking, but it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Versus some stories that do have heavy themes, if they earn it, they're remembered as great. It's not what you have in your story, it's how you have it in there, I guess. With all that being said, thank you so much to everyone who stuck around for the full video. Once again, thank you to Creepcast and Meat Canyon, Windigoon, and all the authors who wrote all these stories. And that's going to be it. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good day.